On today's Minute of the Apes, this is just a sad minute. We have nothing funny to say.
Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape! Exercise would an ape make a human down. It talks. You're the keepers of the divine balance. It is our only reason for survival. We are determined to know what the apes want, war or peace. The only good human is a dead human!
Hello and welcome to Minute of the Apes, a daily podcast where we break down every minute of the Planet of the Apes movies, 1 minute at a time, and I do my best to be happy in the face of sadness. It truly, here's the cool thing. This week has been one of those that I think the three of us probably look forward to, where there's a ton to talk about.
Yes.
There are really things that we can expound upon. You know, we've had the minutes where there's nothing. That today, unfortunately, does continue that there's a lot to talk about. So, Sean, tell us what's going on with this minute.
All right. We start minute 64 with the committee chair saying, be rendered incapable of bearing another, and ends with Cornelius asking how long.
All right. Let's take a listen to minute 64 of Escape from the Planet of the Apes.
Be rendered incapable of bearing another. I now declare this commission dissolved.
Savages! They are savages! Jabbing needles into my pregnant wife.
I've done that too, dear. And worse. Taylor thought we were savages at first.
Did they make you tell them about Taylor too?
They made me tell them everything, Cornelius.
Brutes.
Shall I tell you something? I'm glad I did. We can't live with lies.
After this, I doubt we shall be allowed to live at all.
Do you mean that?
Oh. How long?
As minute 64, we have a planet's worth of humans, plus 2 living apes, one who's pregnant, who knows for how much longer, and 1 dead ape.
So we kind of touched on this yesterday about how the audience might have responded. But, you know, I was trying to think in 71, I would have been 5 years old. At least, you know, at 5 years old, you at least have a kind of a view of the world. Mm-hmm. And I remember Bob Barker always telling people to spay and neuter their pets. I mean, was that the extent to which people might have almost thought of this, that even though they are cognizant beings, you're basically taking a pet and spay and neuter?
I did have that in my note.
True,
Why didn't they say spay or neuter? Because as much as Hassline's already trying to make them back into animals, take it to its cage, you think he would have put spay and neuter in there instead of killing a baby, because that makes them animals. That makes everything easier to do.
And so, you know, I think that I almost wonder if the majority of people, and this is unfair to most people, but I think we could probably agree that most people that go to see a movie don't usually go in to
have an ethics debate.
Yeah, socially challenged in any way. They want to go in to be entertained. They want to forget that they're having a hard time paying their bills that month, whatever it may be. So I think that the shock may be more that the characters they love are being affected than the truth of what it means to our society. Maybe.
It's like The Good Place. You're getting moral lessons in there without knowing that's what you were getting into.
Which, the funny thing is, I have a good friend who watches that show, and he's one of those that doesn't like, he's a smart person. Mm-hmm. He does not like to have debates like that. To him, that bothers him. It's tiresome. I think he wants to ingest his beliefs internally. And his remark of that show is, it isn't entertaining to me. It just feels sluggish because you have to think. And I think that,
come on.
So I think that some people go into these kind of things and it's like, man, would they just get on with the point of the story? They don't understand. This is the
point of the story.
Did you like the cut that they did with this?
I did. I put the editor was patting themselves on the back for the gavel fist cut.
So this was my example when I said that we had a bad transition between the Tate to the council, and I teased that there was a fantastic transition. So what happens, and you hear it in that clip when you listened earlier, when you hear the head of the council bang his gavel.
Now declare this commission dissolved.
And the actual smash cut, and those are called smash cuts. It's both a smash and a match. A match being that we're going to match the action between two places, but it becomes a transition. It smashes because it cuts on action and cuts on action. So we hear the gavel, boom. At the same time, Cornelius slams his fist into the table. That is exactly what that scene before needed. You've bridged the gap. You've now eradicated the need for information. It almost says, even though we know it when we watch this scene, Cornelius does not know what the council's just said,
right?
But somehow their actions are still impacting him at this moment. It's beautiful.
I did have that was a good misdirect, thinking that he's supposed to be angry at the committee's decision when it's actually just prenatal care that's pissing him off.
Yeah. Right.
Savages. I would have liked the fist to be, or I would have liked the shot of the fist and the table.
You want to be damaged. You want to see a dent in the table, again, showing how they're stronger than humans.
Will even be a little more organic, because in order for him to slam his fist on that table, he had to kind of hunch over to make it happen. And I would have liked the look of it to pull back to be a little bit more like you would like pound on a wall or something. I would have liked to see him kind of hit something that made it a little more, or the desk be a little bit taller.
I do not disagree with you about the composition of the shot. And what I don't like about it is because it's so incredibly in on it. When he smashes it, they zoom. They have to zoom because there's not a secondary shot. Usually when you're going to do that, you smash the fist and leave it like 15 frames so it registers what's done.
And you can tell he hit the table rather gently so that he could be on his mark so they could pull out right.
Right. And then that is a hard rack. Now, there's a lot of talent to that.
That's very 60s, 70s thing. It's not something they do so much now unless you're Quentin Tarantino.
And you're trying to evoke those kind of things. And look, the camera op is going to have to be there besides, the person actually looking through the optical finder. And they've marked that. It's hard to pull off, but it is so out of date that I think, to your point, it would have been nice. Again, cut on the fist, cut back to a different shot, and it could have even been him leaning against the table and sort of doing his fist to the side, and it would still work.
Oh, that would have been nice. Kind of down, kind of more ape-like rather than human-like.
Right.
Kind of a push. I found it odd that the chairman would say that the commission was dissolved as opposed to adjourned.
Yeah.
The finality of the commission being done, I guess the work is now done, but it seems like
their recommendation is made, so that's it. The committee's no longer needed.
Yeah, I thought adjourned would, to me, felt a little more like
maybe
possibilities.
Maybe adjourn gives you that changes can be made when dissolve means this is final and nothing can be changed about it.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. I just didn't like the word choice.
I agree with both, and I wonder if you couldn't have said this council is adjourned and all matters remain open until this situation is blah, blah, blah. And at that point will be dissolved. You could even include the two, but it did just, I remember hearing that. I was like, wow, why is this council dissolved?
Right. If he had said this commission is now adjourned and will be dissolved when the threat is neutralized, or something even kind of harder, kind of darker, in terms of how he concluded it.
Well, in parliamentary procedures, an adjournment ends a meeting. And so the meeting is ended, but the commission wouldn't have been ended. Just the meeting.
Right. It's just dissolve is very odd when the matter's not.
It's not as hard of a word as I wanted to hear.
Right.
For that, adjourned would have been soft as well, but it's something a little more,
or something like this committee's recommendations are final and unchangeable, or something like that.
I do like now adjourned and the changes are final. So,
So Zira obviously had her nap while we were away with the council. Now Corny's in there taking care of his woman. And my first thought, with a smash cut like that, it does allow for the immediacy. What you're usually going to think is that the conversation you're currently hearing is going to be continued here, but somehow time has lapsed. So it took me a minute. It took me a minute. It's not a full minute. We do a minute. It took me a few seconds to go,
different conversation.
This is actually happening right at the same time. And Corny is only upset at this point that they've potentially harmed his wife. That's where his
anger is coming from.
Yes.
Yeah.
They moved into this kind of, it's supposed to be the Apes quarters. It's supposed to be nighttime. according to the script. Fluorescent lighting reveals barred windows with no drapes, which we do not have. 2 austere cots, on one of which lies Zira, this is true. Fully clothed, 2 uneasy, easy chairs, and 2 white cushioned metal ones by a table on which Cornelius smashes his hands down. They originally had the script had his hands interlocked. There is another one of those, wall fixtures that is not lit from a repurposed set or room. I noticed that the rooms in here for the scene of this base are either a kind of a pale green on all the walls, or it has kind of a beige. This particular room, for some reason, the beige goes all the way up to that unlit wall fixture that drives me crazy on the wall, and then it's green from there on out, like it might have been repainted or repurposed for this. But when I went back and reviewed the different rooms, they do have that duality of either the interrogation room was all that green, the further room where Zira was questioned was beige with a little bit of a metal of a stone wall, but there was also some green in that room from the bottom floor. Like they're all over the place in terms of the design of this thing. If you go back and look at the hallway, it's half beige, half green. The office is all green.
So at least they were color coordinating between rooms.
Well, but the line of whether it's green and beige goes up and down throughout. Like they were just it's kind of odd, particularly because there's this freaking unlit lamps in every single room. Like it was reused from a set. This could be the same wall. They're just moving around.
You know, again, the production of this film it's nightmarish to make a feature film in 6 weeks if you are doing it on studio sets, because let's say that some things took a little bit longer, you've got to make those days up. And this, sometimes when I'm watching these scenes, it almost feels like, hey, we're actually 45 seconds behind today. Fine, that light, we've got exposure. Can you get it? Are you fine? Let's just go. And it feels like that, because I agree with you.
Paint this wall real quick. We got to move this doors around. Yeah.
Just get it kicking. Oh, we didn't pick up the scene. We were going to do it here. Put it in this room instead.
Well, I mean, that's why I was looking at the wall itself. I mean, could this have been the office wall? You know, could we have moved a desk over here and that weird file cabinet that
the one file
the table?
cabinet?
Yeah.
I'm like, is this the same room? And the door would be right here if that were the case.
Right.
So, sorry, I totally was.
No, that's okay, man. That's part of what we do with the 1 minute at a time. That's
no
sorry to it.
TV going on here.
There's this just sad little desk lamp just kind of sitting out there in this bare room. So he says savages. He says savages jabbing needles into my pregnant wife. And Zira is very calm.
She is.
In this minute. I've done that too, dear, and worse. Taylor thought we were savages at first.
Well, I mean, in Human's defense, it was one needle, one time. It's not like they were beating her up. They gave her a shot.
And Taylor's idea of why he thought they were savages, he's looking at that he's been brought into a cage.
People in cages.
By being hunted down and brought in, shot, his friends shot. There's a total difference between why he thought it as opposed to them.
It's just
I hear the dogs.
I'm sorry, everyone, about the dogs. Apparently, the world in the Hartzell household has woken up.
Yes.
Did they tell you about Taylor too? They made me tell them about everything, Cornelius. Brutes. And I shall tell you something. I'm glad I did. We can't live with lies. It's almost like a weird kind of like I recognize in their eyes why this would be terrible, even though in the future it was not terrible. But she didn't want to save humans as much as she could. It was just kind of a weird kind of choice to make this admission that she's like, I can accept that what I did was wrong. I mean, is Dane trying to bring her back to being sympathetic to the audience from having the atrocities that she just mentioned earlier about operating on non-humans? But we kind of already knew that's what she was doing.
Yeah, but I found that this shift for Zira was a bit of a re-injection of femininity for the character, because now she becomes soft.
Motherly.
Yes, it's exactly that. And I think by what we are now hearing that they want to terminate the child, I think that it's a conscious decision to take her and make her softer at this point, that now Cornelius is the angry and now he's almost protective. And I think with what's coming in a few minutes, that fits into where the characters need to be. It's a little bit of a hard gear shift. It is literally like they didn't even push the clutch in and go from first to second. They went